The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the empty space between 12 different star systems. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside the main meeting hall, representatives from the most powerful empires in the galaxy sat around a circular table that could hold 1,000 beings. Admiral Kethvar stood at the center of the room. His blue skin had dark stripes running down his arms, and his 4 eyes scanned the crowd. He belonged to the Dominion, one of the oldest and strongest empires in known space. In his 3-fingered hand, he held a small device that projected images above the table. "Fellow council members," Kethvar said in his deep voice, "today we discuss a new world that has appeared in our territory. The planet is called Earth." The holographic image showed a small blue and green world spinning slowly. White clouds covered parts of the surface. It looked peaceful and quiet. "This world sits at the edge of the outer rim," Kethvar continued. "It has valuable minerals that our empires need. The location is perfect for trade routes between our systems. Most importantly, the beings that live there are weak." Murmurs filled the hall. Representatives from different species whispered to each other in their own languages. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had scales or fur covering their bodies. All of them were much older and more advanced than the humans they were discussing. At a small table near the back of the room, 2 humans sat alone. Commander Jake Miller wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. His brown hair was starting to turn gray and worry lines showed on his face. Next to him sat Captain Lisa Ford, dressed in the green military uniform of Earth's Defense Forces. Her hand rested on the weapon at her side. Jake stood up slowly. "Honored council members," he said, his voice carrying across the huge room. "Earth has been part of the galactic community for only 18 months. Our people are still learning about the galaxy and its ways. Some of the alien representatives made sounds that might have been laughter. Others simply stared at the human with what looked like boredom. We have 8 billion people on our world," Jake continued. "They are farmers, teachers, scientists, and artists. They have families and children. Earth asks only to be left in peace to grow and learn." Kethvar's 4 eyes focused on Jake. "Your species has shown aggressive tendencies. Your ships carry weapons. Your people fight wars among themselves. The galaxy needs stable leadership in that sector." "Every species has conflicts," Jake replied. "We are working to build peace on our world. Given time, we can prove that humans can be trusted members of the galactic community." Captain Ford whispered something to Jake. Her green eyes were hard as steel. She had spent 20 years in Earth's military and knew when a fight was coming. "The human makes pretty speeches," said Commander Veltar of the Hegemony. His insect-like body clicked as he moved. "But words mean nothing. Their world has resources we need. Their location blocks our expansion. They are primitives who barely understand space travel." "The Crystalline Consortium agrees," sang a voice like breaking glass. The speaker was a being made of living crystal that changed colors as it talked. "Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. They have no defenses worth mentioning. Conquest would be simple." More voices joined in. The Void Seekers wanted Earth's rare metals. The star-touched empire needed the planet as a military base. The Machine Collective saw humans as inefficient, biological units that needed to be replaced. High above the main floor, hidden in an observation deck meant for journalists and researchers, Dr. Amy Brooks sat quietly. She was Earth's xenobiologist, sent to study alien life forms and cultures. Her job was to watch and learn, not to speak at the council meetings. Amy activated a small recording device hidden in her jacket. Everything the council said was being stored in an encrypted memory chip. Her heart was beating fast as she listened to the aliens discuss her homeworld like it was just another piece of property to be divided up. "The vote will be held now," announced the council's mechanical voice system. "All empires with territorial claims in the outer rim may participate. The question is simple. Should Earth be designated as a conquest target for immediate invasion?" One by one, the representatives cast their votes. The results appeared on screens around the hall. The Dominion voted yes. The Hegemony voted yes. The Crystalline Consortium voted yes. Every single empire agreed that Earth should be invaded and conquered. "The vote is unanimous," the mechanical voice announced. "Earth is designated as a priority target for immediate conquest. Invasion forces will be assembled from all participating empires. Estimated time for complete conquest, 72 standard hours." Jake's face went pale. Lisa's hand moved closer to her weapon, though she knew it would be useless against 1,000 alien warriors. "This council recognizes that Earth's primitive defenses make it an ideal target for new conquest protocols," Kethvar said with satisfaction. "Our combined fleets will test new weapons and tactics on their population centers. Any survivors will be relocated to labor camps on mining worlds." Amy's hands shook as she continued recording. The aliens were not just planning to invade Earth. They were planning to use it as target practice for their new weapons. Millions of humans would die just so these creatures could test their military technology. "The human representatives are dismissed," Kethvar announced. "You may return to your world to prepare your people for integration into our empires. Resistance will only increase casualties." Jake and Lisa stood up together. They walked toward the exit with as much dignity as they could manage. Every alien in the room watched them leave. Some made sounds that definitely were laughter now. Amy waited until the main session ended before she moved. She had to get her recording back to Earth before the invasion fleet arrived. The message would take 3 days to reach home through the quantum communication network. If the aliens moved as fast as they claimed, Earth would have almost no time to prepare. She made her way to the communication center and sent her encrypted message to General Peter Hayes at North American Defense Command. The file contained everything the Council had discussed, including fleet sizes, attack plans, and the timeline for invasion. As Amy sent the message, she thought about her family back home. Her sister had 2 young children who loved to play in their backyard garden. Her parents lived in a small town where everyone knew each other's names. None of them had any idea that in less than a week, alien warships would be burning their world. The message traveled through space faster than light, carrying with it the last hope for 8 billion human lives. The encrypted message from Dr. Amy Brooks reached Earth exactly 3 days before the alien invasion fleet arrived. General Peter Hayes sat in his office deep underground at North American Defense Command, reading the intelligence report for the 5th time. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. "They're bringing everything," he said to his aide, Colonel Jane Roberts. 12 different empires, over 2,000 warships, and they plan to use our planet as target practice for their new weapons. Jane looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. They had 47 orbital defense platforms, most of them built in the last 18 months. Earth's space navy consisted of 12 destroyers and 6 cruisers. Against 2,000 alien warships, they would last maybe an hour. "Sir," Jane said quietly, "should I contact the president?" "Already done," Peter replied. "President Karen White has authorized Protocol 7. We're moving to the final phase." Protocol 7 was something Earth's leaders had hoped they would never need to use. 2 years ago, when humans first made contact with alien civilizations, Earth scientists had started working on defensive measures. They quickly realized that in any military conflict, humanity would be hopelessly outmatched. Dr. Helen Martinez had proposed a different kind of defense. Instead of trying to build better weapons or stronger ships, Earth would develop something the galaxy had never seen before. They would create a biological weapon that could spread through the enemy's own technology. Deep in the Colorado mountains, Marine Colonel Ryan Scott coordinated with similar facilities on every continent. Each base housed teams of scientists, engineers, and military personnel who had been working in secret for over a year. Their project was called Lazarus, and it was about to be tested on a galactic scale. "All stations report ready," Ryan said into his headset. "Dr. Martinez, you have authorization for final deployment." Helen stood in the main laboratory, wearing a white coat over her military uniform. Around her, dozens of scientists monitored computer screens and biological containment units. They had created something that existed at the border between biology and technology. The weapon was a quantum biological virus. It could spread through subspace communication networks, ship ventilation systems, and even the quantum entanglement. connections that linked alien technology together. The virus was designed to target non-human genetic patterns while leaving human DNA completely untouched. Beginning deployment sequence, Helen announced. All personnel to safe positions. The virus existed in a special containment field until the moment of release. It was invisible, undetectable by normal sensors, and capable of surviving in the vacuum of space. Most importantly, it could adapt and evolve as it encountered new forms of alien technology. Above Earth's atmosphere, the invasion fleet began to arrive. Fleet Commander Zalthok of the Hegemony watched from his flagship as hundreds of alien warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ships came from 12 different empires, representing dozens of alien species. Human defenses are exactly as predicted, reported his tactical officer. Primitive orbital platforms, outdated shield generators, a handful of small warships. This will be easier than our training exercises. Zalthok had conquered 17 worlds in his career. He was known throughout the galaxy for his ability to crush planetary defenses quickly and efficiently. Earth looked like it would be his easiest victory yet. All ships, begin the attack, Zalthok ordered. Target their orbital defenses first. Leave their cities intact for now. We want to test our new bombardment systems on populated areas. The alien fleet opened fire. Energy beams and missile volleys tore through Earth's outer defenses. The orbital platforms exploded one by one, their crews dying instantly. Earth's small fleet of warships tried to fight back, but their weapons barely scratched the alien ship's advanced armor. Lieutenant Commander Steve Johnson commanded the Earth destroyer, Independence. His ship was one of the newest in the fleet, but it was still hopelessly outgunned. As alien plasma bolts tore through his ship's shields, he prepared for the end. All hands, prepare for impact, Steve announced over the ship's communication system. It's been an honor serving with you. But then something strange started happening to the alien fleet. Ships that had been firing moments before suddenly went silent. Their weapon systems stopped working. Some ships began firing on each other instead of targeting Earth's defenses. What's happening out there? Steve asked his sensor operator. I don't know, sir, came the reply. The alien ships are having massive system failures. Their technology is turning against them. The virus had been released the moment the alien fleet entered Earth's orbital space. It spread through their communication networks faster than thought itself. Every time an alien ship tried to coordinate with another ship, the virus jumped between them. Within the first hour, the virus had infected every ship in the invasion fleet. It began attacking the alien crews through their own life support systems. The air they breathed became poison. The food their ships produced became toxic. Their medical systems began harming instead of healing. But the virus did more than just kill the alien crews. It caused their technology to malfunction in specific ways. Weapon systems targeted their own ships. Navigation computers sent ships crashing into each other. Shield generators overloaded and exploded. Commander Zalthok watched in horror as his fleet destroyed itself. Ships that had traveled across the galaxy to conquer Earth were now drifting helplessly in space. Emergency signals filled every communication channel. Medical emergency on all decks, his ship's computer announced in a voice that was becoming distorted. Life support systems compromised. Recommend immediate evacuation. Zalthok tried to send a warning back to the home systems, but his communication array was no longer under his control. Instead of sending tactical reports, it was broadcasting the virus itself back through the quantum communication network that connected all the alien empires. The few alien crews that survived the first wave of infection tried desperately to escape, but their ship's engines had been compromised. Some vessels exploded as their power cores overloaded. Others simply drifted into Earth's atmosphere and burned up like meteors. Steve Johnson watched from the bridge of his damaged ship as the entire alien invasion fleet either destroyed itself or went dead in space. In less than 6 hours, 2,000 enemy warships had been reduced to floating scrap metal. Sir, his communication officer said with amazement, we're receiving surrender signals from the few remaining alien ships. They're begging us to help them. But it was too late. The virus had already jumped through the quantum networks back to the alien homeworlds. Every empire that had voted to invade Earth was about to discover that their technology had become their enemy. On Earth, President Karen White received reports from around the planet. The invasion had failed completely. Not a single human city had been attacked. The alien fleet was destroyed, and Earth's secret weapon was now spreading across the galaxy. "How long before we know the full extent?" she asked General Hayes. "Unknown, Madam President," Peter replied. "The virus is designed to follow their communication networks and trade routes. It could reach every alien civilization within weeks." Dr. Martinez monitored the virus's progress from her laboratory. She had created it to defend Earth, but now she was beginning to understand just how powerful her creation had become. The virus was not just spreading to the invasion fleet's home worlds. It was jumping from system to system, adapting to each new form of alien technology it encountered. What had started as a defensive measure was becoming something much larger and more dangerous. Earth had won the battle, but the war was just beginning to spread across the entire galaxy. 3 months after the failed invasion of Earth, entire star systems had gone silent across the galaxy. The quantum biological virus created by Dr. Helen Martinez and her team had spread far beyond anything they had imagined possible. What started as a defensive weapon to protect Earth had become a galaxy-wide catastrophe. Dr. Ben Carter worked 18-hour days in his laboratory in Atlanta. He was the lead designer of the virus, and the weight of what he had created was crushing him. Around him, computer screens showed star maps where red dots marked systems that were no longer responding to any communications. "The spread pattern doesn't make sense," he said to his colleague, Dr. Grace Evans. "We designed it to target the specific genetic markers of the invasion fleet species, but it's affecting races we never even studied." Grace pulled up a holographic display showing the virus's evolution over the past 3 months. The original design had been elegant and precise. It would target non-human DNA while leaving humans completely safe. But the current version looked nothing like what they had created. "It's learning," Grace said with horror in her voice. "Every time it encounters a new alien species, it adapts. It's becoming better at identifying and attacking non-human genetic patterns." Ben stared at the data. The truth was becoming clear, and it was worse than their worst nightmares. Most alien species in the galaxy shared common genetic markers from an ancient precursor race that had existed millions of years ago. The virus was using these shared characteristics to jump from species to species. "We didn't create a weapon," Ben whispered. "We created a plague that targets everything that isn't human." Meanwhile, Commander Tony Rodriguez led a scouting mission to the Centauri system aboard the Earth ship Explorer. The system had once been home to 40 billion beings from the Hegemony Empire. It was one of their most important industrial centers, producing ships and weapons for their entire military. Now it was completely silent. "Take us into orbit around the main world," Tony ordered his pilot. The planet below had been covered with massive cities just a few months ago. From space it looked the same as always, but no lights were visible on the dark side of the planet. No ships moved between the orbital stations. "Sir," his sensor operator reported, "I'm detecting millions of automated distress signals. They've been broadcasting for weeks, but no one is answering them." Tony's team explored several abandoned ships and space stations. They found the same thing everywhere: empty corridors, silent control rooms, and the bodies of alien beings who had died when their own technology turned against them. The virus had caused their life support systems to fail, their medical equipment to poison them, and their computers to attack them. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Tony said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "The virus was meant to stop an invasion fleet, not wipe out entire civilizations." Back on Earth, Secretary of Defense Matt Adams briefed President Karen White on the growing crisis. The situation reports coming in from human scout ships painted a picture of devastation across the galaxy. "The Dominion Empire has collapsed," Matt reported. "Over 300 worlds, all silent. The Crystalline Consortium is gone. The Machine Collective's entire network is shut down. Even the Ancient Architect Empire is sending us surrender messages." President White stood at the window of the Oval Office looking out at the peaceful city beyond. It was hard to believe that while Earth remained safe and normal, the rest of the galaxy was dying. How many species have we killed? She asked quietly. Unknown, Madam President, Matt replied. Our estimates suggest that over 90% of galactic civilization has been affected. We're talking about trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. The Architect Empire had been the most shocking collapse of all. They were one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, with technology that seemed almost magical to human scientists. They had existed for over 5 million years and had never been defeated in war. Captain Nicole Foster commanded the exploration vessel Horizon at the edge of known space. Her mission was to make contact with the architects and try to understand how the virus had reached them. The Architect home system was protected by energy barriers that could stop entire fleets, but somehow the virus had gotten through. We're receiving a transmission, her communication officer announced. It's from the Architect Emperor himself. The message appeared on the main screen. The Emperor was a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form that stood 12 feet tall. His ancient voice carried the weight of millions of years of existence. Humans of Earth, the Emperor said, we acknowledge our defeat. Your weapon has accomplished what no military force in galactic history could achieve. We offer complete surrender and tribute in exchange for mercy. We beg you to stop the dying. Nicole felt sick to her stomach. The architects had never surrendered to anyone. They were beings of such advanced intelligence that they considered most other species to be barely above animals. Now they were begging humans for mercy. Send a reply, Nicole ordered. Tell them we're trying to find a cure. Ask them to share any information they have about the virus's spread patterns. The architect response came back within hours. Their scientists had been studying the virus since it first appeared in their systems. What they had discovered was terrifying. The biological agent continues to evolve at an exponential rate, the architect scientist reported. It has developed the ability to survive in any environment and adapt to any form of technology. Most concerning, it appears to be developing intelligence of its own. Dr. Carter and Dr. Evans worked frantically in their Atlanta laboratory to understand what the architects meant. They ran computer simulations and analyzed samples of the evolved virus. The results confirmed their worst fears. It's not just adapting to new species, Grace said, her voice shaking. It's learning to anticipate them. The virus is becoming smarter with every world it consumes. The virus had evolved far beyond its original programming. It could now survive without any biological host, existing purely as an information pattern that moved through quantum communication networks. It had learned to identify and destroy any form of non-human technology, even devices that had never been connected to any network. Ben stared at the data showing the virus's current capabilities. We've created something that won't stop until every non-human intelligence in the galaxy is dead, and then it might start looking for new galaxies to infect. Emergency meetings were held in every major capital on Earth. World leaders who had celebrated the victory over the invasion fleet now faced the reality of what their defense had cost. Humanity had become the dominant power in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through accidental genocide. We have to find a way to stop it, President White declared in an emergency session with the world's top scientists. We cannot let this virus destroy every other form of intelligent life in the universe. But even as teams of researchers worked around the clock to find a cure, the virus continued its relentless spread. It followed trade routes and communication networks, jumping from system to system. Each new world it reached added to its knowledge and made it more deadly. The galaxy that had voted to invade Earth was paying a price that no one could have imagined. Empires that had existed for millions of years were falling in a matter of weeks. Ancient civilizations were becoming extinct memories. And at the center of it all, Earth remained perfectly safe, protected by the very weapon that was destroying everything else. Humanity had asked only to be left alone. Now they were inheriting a galaxy of empty worlds and silent stars, wondering if they had become the monsters they had tried to defend themselves against. 6 months after the failed invasion attempt, Earth found itself in a position no human leader had ever imagined. The planet that had begged for peace was now the dominant power in a galaxy that had become largely empty. President Karen White sat in her private study, reading reports that described the collapse of civilizations that had existed longer than human history. The numbers were staggering. Over 1,500 star systems had gone completely silent. Trillions of intelligent beings had died as their own technology turned against them. What had started as Earth's desperate attempt at self-defense had become the largest extinction event in galactic history. Ambassador Tim Clark had been given one of the most difficult jobs in human history. He worked at Luna Station, a facility built in Earth's moon's orbit to handle communications with the surviving alien civilizations. Every day, he met with representatives from species that had once commanded vast empires and now controlled only a handful of worlds. The Zephyrian Republic requests permission to establish a quarantine zone around their remaining colonies, Tim read from his daily briefing. They're offering to share all their scientific knowledge in exchange for protection from the virus. His aide, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, handed him another stack of diplomatic requests. The Crystal Singers want to relocate their entire population to an isolated system near the galactic rim. The Void Seekers are asking if they can surrender their remaining military forces to human command. Tim had been a diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Species that had once looked down on humans as primitive barbarians were now begging for mercy from the very people they had planned to conquer. The most shocking meeting of all had been with Admiral Kethvar, the Dominion officer who had started the entire crisis by proposing the invasion of Earth. The proud, alien leader who had once commanded fleets across hundreds of star systems now represented the survivors of a single world. "My people number less than 50 million now," Kethvar had said during their last meeting. His blue skin looked pale and sickly, and his 4 eyes had lost their fierce glow. "We were a proud empire of 600 billion souls. Now we huddle on one planet, afraid to use any technology more advanced than farming tools." Tim had tried to find words of comfort, but what could he say? The Dominion's own weapons had turned against them. Their ships had fired on their cities. Their medical systems had poisoned their patients. Everything they had built over thousands of years had been destroyed by their own creations. Meanwhile, Dr. Ben Carter and his expanded research team worked desperately to create a cure for the virus they had unleashed. The laboratory in Atlanta had grown into a massive complex employing thousands of scientists from around the world. But every attempt to stop or reverse the virus's effects had failed. "The problem is that it's no longer the same organism we created," Ben explained to Dr. Grace Evans during one of their daily briefings. "It's evolved into something completely different. It's like trying to cure a disease that changes faster than we can study it." The virus had developed abilities that seemed almost impossible. It could survive in the vacuum of space, exist as pure information within computer networks, and adapt to any form of alien technology within hours. Worse, it appeared to be actively learning from every attempt to destroy it. Major Susan Parker led the humanitarian missions that Earth had begun sending to affected worlds. Her job was to provide aid to surviving alien populations, but often her teams arrived to find entire planets already dead. The virus worked faster than even humanity's best ships could travel. "We reached the hegemony border worlds today," Susan reported to Earth Command from her ship, the Mercy. "Population of 12 billion 3 months ago. Current population, 0. The automated systems are still running, but there's no one left to shut them down." The empty worlds were haunting places. Cities still functioned perfectly, with streetlights turning on at sunset and traffic signals changing colors for vehicles that would never come. Parks and gardens were maintained by robotic systems that didn't know their creators were dead. In some places, automated factories continued producing goods that no one would ever use. General Peter Hayes coordinated the massive logistics of dealing with hundreds of abandoned star systems. Human ships were spread thin across the galaxy, trying to shut down dangerous automated systems, secure valuable resources, and search for survivors. "We're finding hidden colonies on almost every world we investigate," Peter reported to President White. "Small groups of aliens who managed to destroy their own technology before the virus could use it against them. They're living like primitives, afraid to rebuild." Engineer Rick Thompson oversaw the construction of isolation barriers around these survivor settlements. The barriers used human technology to create safe zones where aliens could live without fear of their own devices. It was strange and sad to see advanced beings who had once traveled between stars, now living in simple shelters and growing their food by hand. The hardest part is explaining to them that we never meant for this to happen, Rick said to his team leader, Dr. Carol Martinez. They look at us like we're monsters who planned this whole thing. President White struggled with the moral weight of humanity's accidental victory. Every night she reviewed casualty reports that described the deaths of beings she had never met from worlds she had never seen. Earth's defense had saved 8 billion human lives, but it had cost the galaxy trillions of alien lives. We have to do something, she said during a cabinet meeting. We can't just inherit their worlds and pretend this was somehow justified. Secretary of Defense Matt Adams presented options that all seemed inadequate. We're already providing aid to every survivor group we can find. Our ships are working around the clock to shut down dangerous automated systems. But the scale of the disaster is beyond anything we can fully address. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humanity had become the caretaker of civilizations that had considered them inferior. Human children now played in parks on worlds where alien families had lived for countless generations. Human farmers grew crops in fields that had been tended by beings who had evolved agriculture millions of years before humans had even existed. Captain Lisa Ford, now promoted to admiral, commanded the expanding human fleet from the former Dominion, capital world. The planet's magnificent crystal city stood empty except for the human personnel who maintained essential systems. She often walked through the abandoned halls and wondered what the original inhabitants had been like. It feels wrong to be here, she confided to her aide, Commander Daniel Torres. These aren't our worlds. We didn't earn them through courage or wisdom. We just happened to be the only species that our own weapon couldn't kill. The psychological impact on humanity was immense. Support groups met in every major city on Earth to help people cope with the guilt of survival. Therapists worked overtime treating humans who felt responsible for deaths that numbered in the trillions. Religious leaders struggled to find meaning in a victory that felt more like a curse. Dr. Helen Martinez, the original creator of the virus, had not spoken publicly since the true extent of the damage became clear. She spent her days in isolation, working on research that might somehow undo what she had done. Her colleagues worried about her mental state, but she refused all offers of help. I created a monster, she had written in her final report. I thought I was saving humanity, but I may have doomed the galaxy to emptiness. Future generations will judge whether our survival was worth the price everyone else paid. The surviving alien civilizations watched humanity's expansion with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Some saw humans as saviors who might restore order to the chaos. Others viewed them as the bringers of apocalypse who had destroyed the natural balance of the galaxy. Either way, the small blue world that had once begged to be left alone now controlled more territory than any empire in recorded history. The vote to invade Earth had consequences that reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined, and humanity was left to figure out what to do with a galaxy that had become their responsibility through tragedy rather than triumph. 2 years after the Galactic Council's vote to invade Earth, humanity had established what they called the Terran Protectorate across the former territories of 12 alien empires. The galaxy was now 97% depopulated, with only small groups of survivors remaining under human protection. Earth had become the center of the largest empire in recorded galactic history, though no one called it an empire. Dr. Helen Martinez now led the Reconstruction Initiative, a massive project dedicated to preserving alien cultures and knowledge before they disappeared forever. Her team of human researchers worked alongside the few remaining alien scholars to catalog the achievements of civilizations that had existed for millions of years. Today we completed the archive of crystalline consortium music, Helen reported during her weekly briefing. Over 40,000 compositions that span 3 million years of cultural development. Most of the composers are dead, but their art will survive. The weight of this responsibility showed on Helen's face. She had created the virus that destroyed these civilizations, and now she spent every waking hour trying to save what remained of their legacy. Libraries that contained the wisdom of ages were carefully digitized. Artworks that had inspired billions of beings were preserved in climate-controlled facilities. Scientific discoveries that had taken millennia to develop were translated into human languages. "The hardest part is knowing that we're just collecting shadows," Helen said to her assistant, Dr. Marcus Lee. "We can save their books and their art, but we can't bring back the living cultures that created them." Admiral Lisa Ford commanded the Terran fleet from New Geneva, the human settlement built on the former Dominion capital world. Her office overlooked a city of crystal spires that reached toward the clouds, beautiful structures that would never again house the beings who had designed them. The irony of her situation was not lost on her. She had spent her entire career preparing to defend humanity from alien invasion, and now she commanded fleets that protected the aliens from the consequences of their own actions. "Status report from the Outer Rim sectors," her aide, Colonel James Wright, announced as he entered her office. "The automated mining systems on 17 worlds have been successfully shut down. The survivor colonies on those worlds report stable conditions." Lisa reviewed the reports on her desk. Human engineers worked constantly to disable dangerous, alien technology while keeping essential systems running. It was delicate work. Too much intervention and the survivor colonies would lose their basic life support. Too little and the rogue automated systems might trigger another wave of disasters. "What about the request from the hegemony survivors on Kepler 442? Lisa asked. "They want permission to attempt rebuilding their communication network," James replied. "They claim they've developed virus-resistant protocols." Lisa shook her head. "Denied. We can't risk another outbreak. They'll have to use human communication systems like everyone else." This was the new reality. Alien civilizations that had once spanned the galaxy now depended on human technology for basic communication. They lived in isolated settlements, afraid to rebuild the advanced systems that had made them powerful. Children of species that had once traveled faster than light now learned to use simple tools and basic agriculture. Commander Jake Miller, the former Earth diplomat, now served as governor of the Centauri sector. His office was located in what had once been the hegemony's regional capital, a massive space station that could house 10 million beings. Now fewer than 50,000 aliens lived there, the survivors of a civilization that had numbered in the hundreds of billions. "The integration programs are showing mixed results," Jake reported during his monthly conference with Earth Command. "Younger aliens adapt well to living alongside humans. The older ones struggle with the reality of their situation." Jake walked through the station's residential areas every day, trying to understand the beings under his protection. He saw alien children playing games that humans had taught them, while their parents sat quietly and remembered the worlds they would never see again. The psychological trauma was immense. Many aliens suffered from what human doctors called survivor's guilt, wondering why they had lived when so many others had died. "The architect refugees have made an interesting proposal," Jake continued. "They want to establish a memorial garden for all the species that were lost. They're offering to share their advanced biotechnology to create a living monument." President White, now in her second term, had aged visibly during the crisis. The stress of governing an accidental empire while trying to help galactic refugees had taken its toll. She spent her days making decisions that affected trillions of beings across thousands of worlds, responsibilities no human leader had ever faced. "Approved," she said after reviewing Jake's proposal. "If it helps them process their grief, we should support it. How are the resettlement efforts progressing?" The resettlement efforts were one of the most challenging aspects of the new galactic order. Many surviving aliens wanted to return to their ancestral worlds, but those planets were often uninhabitable due to technology failures or environmental collapse. Human terraforming teams worked to restore damaged ecosystems, but the process would take decades. "We've successfully restored basic habitability to 12 worlds this quarter," reported Director Sarah Collins, head of the Planetary Restoration Project. "But the Dominion survivors are reluctant to return to their home systems. They say the planets feel haunted now." The psychological aspect of the crisis was something humans were still learning to address. Many aliens believed that the virus had not just killed their people, but had somehow corrupted the very essence of their worlds. They preferred to live on human-controlled planets rather than return to homes that reminded them of their losses. Dr. Ben Carter continued his work trying to understand and potentially reverse the virus's effects, but his research had taken on a different focus. Instead of trying to cure something that was no longer controllable, he was working to ensure it could never happen again. We've developed new protocols for all future biological weapons research, Ben reported to the Global Science Council. Multiple safeguards, ethical reviews, and containment procedures. No one should ever again create something that can evolve beyond our control. The virus itself had finally stopped spreading, not because anyone had found a way to stop it, but because it had run out of non-human technology to infect. It still existed throughout the galaxy, waiting in dormant states within quantum networks. But there were no new civilizations for it to discover and destroy. The final casualty reports are complete, announced Director of Galactic Affairs Robert Chen. Estimated total deaths: 4.7 trillion intelligent beings across 1,600 star systems. Surviving populations: approximately 50 million individuals representing 43 species. The numbers were so large that they became meaningless to most humans. How could anyone understand the loss of 4 trillion lives? How could a species that had numbered only 8 billion take responsibility for deaths on such a scale? President White stood before the United Nations Assembly to deliver her final address before stepping down from office. Representatives from every nation on Earth listened as she reflected on humanity's transformation from a small, isolated species to the reluctant rulers of the galaxy. "We sought only to defend our small blue world," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 2 years of impossible decisions. "We never wanted to conquer anyone. We never wanted to rule the stars. We simply wanted to survive when the galaxy voted to destroy us." She paused, looking out at the faces of people who had lived through the greatest crisis in human history. "Now we must live with the consequences of our survival. We inherited these worlds not through conquest but through tragedy. We rule not because we are strong, but because we are the only ones left who can. The responsibility we carry is heavier than any crown, more binding than any treaty." Governor Miller walked through the memorial garden that the architect survivors had created. Alien plants from hundreds of dead worlds grew together in a living display of what the galaxy had lost. Each section represented a different species that had been destroyed by humanity's desperate defense. Children from the survivor colonies played among the memorial plants. Human children and alien children together, learning each other's games and languages. They were the first generation to grow up in this new galaxy, and perhaps they would find ways to heal the wounds that their parents' generation had created. "Grandfather, tell us about the old galaxy," a young hegemony survivor asked an elderly alien who sat beneath a tree from his extinct homeworld. The old being's compound eyes grew dim as he remembered. "It was full of noise and light and anger," he said softly. "Empires that stretched across the stars. Billions of worlds where people lived and loved and built great things. We thought we were so powerful. We thought we could take whatever we wanted." The child listened carefully. "What happened to it all?" "We made a mistake," the old alien replied. "We tried to hurt someone who just wanted to be left alone, and that someone turned out to be much more dangerous than we ever imagined.